Hey guys, today I'm going to read Greg Heffley Ace Attorney, the first turnabout by you/Mist Ricks 4L. July 7, 2014 Turnabout Diary Monday. It's been a long time since I've written in one of these, in about 5 years. It's been a while since I graduated high school actually, but that's a bygone era. I decided to take law in my college days and ended up becoming a lawyer. I even have my badge to prove it. Anyway, after I got my badge and passed the bar, I started looking for places to work. I thought it would be hard to find a place to work, but I was wrong. There was one place that was looking for its first employee, or at least he first employee. My new boss was Heather Hills, CEO of Hills Law & Co. So that's what brought me to today, or at least to where I am now, my current case. When I first met my client, I felt a wave of nostalgia, but also panic. My client was none other than Chirag. Just like in school, Chirag was bawling his eyes out and the fact that he was being tried for murder. I tried to tell him to calm down, and that he hasn't been proved guilty yet. I thought that would calm him down, but it basically had the opposite effect. Heather didn't think my advice was very good. Maybe you should try being positive. She told Chirag that everything was going to work out and I would prove his innocence. After that debacle, the bailiff called us into the courthouse. I put my sweat beside me and headed inside. The courthouse was very big, bigger than, about 4 shipping containers. I saw the lead prosecutor of this case there, Alex Arita, who still looked like a gigantic nerd. Although to be fair, you have to be pretty smart to make it through law school. Then the judge entered. When I saw him, he looked kind of familiar, but couldn't quite remember who he was until Heather told me that the judge was Albert Sandy. Once she said that, I got even more nervous and sweaty. Albert Sandy is like the worst judge possible. In fact, I don't even know how he even became a judge. I knew that this was going to be hard, and not just because of Albert, but because this is my first case. I didn't want to tell Chirag that this was my first. Albert slammed down the gavel and the trial started. Would the prosecution give their opening statement? Alex then began to tell the story of what happened to Chirag, at least what he claims to have happened. The story was that Chirag was at a party, Bryce Anderson's 4th of July party. His girlfriend, Jessica Fendez, broke up with him. Chirag then went into a rage and shot her to her death, where Bryce walked into the scene. Alex then called in the first witness to the crime. Well, it wasn't actually a witness, it was actually a detective. His name was Roderick. His testimony was about the general facts of the case, the events that took place. Okay, so the accused got really mad at his girlfriend. So he killed her in a rage by grabbing a gun on the top shelf. He then shot her in the face. After he finished, the judge asked if I wanted to cross-examine. I couldn't clearly find any problems with what he said yet, but Heather did. She said, "This is an easy on Greg, just look at him." I thought she was talking about Roderick, but I realized she was talking about Chirag. I shouted objection. Roderick looked confused. He thought that his testimony was perfect, even though it clearly wasn't. I pointed out to everyone that Chirag was too short to reach the gun. Even Alex's expression changed too. Roderick started to panic and stutter, all he could say was, "Well, what if he jumped?" Alex Arita was doubting his own witness as well. Going to such lengths as to apologize to the judge for Roderick's blunder. "My apologies, Your Honor, I'll be sure this buffoon gets it right next time." Roderick was then dismissed from the courtroom and escorted into the lobby by the bailiff. Alex then started saying that height doesn't matter, which is funny coming from his height of 5 feet 2 inches. But there was still other evidence proving Chirag killed Jessica. Heather said that I should get ready, because it was going to get a lot harder from here. Alex was bringing in a witness that wasn't a complete idiot. The next witness was Bryce Anderson himself. It makes sense that he would be next as he was the only other witness. But then the judge asked if the party was fun. What the heck, Albert? Someone literally died, and you ask if it was fun? Bryce must have had the same thoughts as me. He then called out Albert on his comment. Sure, it was great until Jessica died. That led to an uproar in the crowd, who were obviously mad at Albert for what he said, so like the honorable man he was, he called for immediate recess. At least I have time to console Chirag on what the hell happened that night. Chirag actually hasn't told me anything yet. In fact, all he said so far was asking me to take the case pretty please with a blueberry on top, which first of all, that's the incorrect phrase, and second, he never said what happened other than being accused of murder. So with that, I started to question him. He got to the party around 6 p.m., with his girlfriend of course. After a couple hours of partying, his girlfriend called him into Bryce's room, where she then broke up with him. Feeling extreme emotions, he left to go to the bathroom to cool off. When he came back to the room, the lights were off. Suddenly, he felt something land in his hands and the light flashed on. On the floor was his ex-girlfriend with a bullet in her face. On the other side of the room was Bryce Anderson. After that he said things were foggy, but he did remember something. He heard Bryce say, "Why did she do it to me?" before Bryce jumped forward and tackled Chirag. This is my best depiction of Chirag's story. Scream. With this new insight, Heather asked if I truly trusted him now. And I gotta say, I honestly believe Chirag. It doesn't seem like him to make this all up. But I guess we will see what Bryce says. Heather then asked me if I had seen all the evidence in the court record, which I had mostly forgotten about. So, me and her looked it over again. The list included the gun, which had both Chirag's and Bryce's fingerprints. Autopsy report, the victim was shot once in the head. The light switch, light was off in the room during the murder. Wet paper towel, Chirag fingerprints, cell phone, messages between the girlfriend and the two men. Chirag's height, he's only 4'10". The recess had ended, so we headed back into the courtroom. Albert looked shrimpy in chair, like he was trying to stay out of sight, even though he was in the center of the room. So there we were back on stage. Hopefully this time Albert doesn't pull a stunt like that. Bryce began from the beginning. When I turned on the lights, there she was. Her face was riddled with bullets. Then I looked up, I saw him. He's a monster. He's too dangerous to kept alive. From what I got of testimony, it was plenty different from Chirag's. Heather could probably tell I was getting nervous, so she asked Bryce a question. How many bullets was she riddled with, exactly, she said. Bryce stood there thinking for a bit, before then saying about 5. Then I looked at the evidence list and saw a contradiction. Autopsy report, the victim was shot once in the head. I called the contradiction in Bryce's testimony. Repeating what was on the autopsy, the jury began to murmur before Albert peeked up. Why does that appear to be the case? Bryce, why did you say that she was shot multiple times? He spoke. But Alex objected. Objection, Your Honor. Why, it does appear that Mr. Anderson's is wrong. Please consider what he had just seen. It's easy for people to make mistakes. The judge agreed. So now I am 100% inclined to believe that Albert sided with Alex because of a drama that happened 10 minutes ago. What that means for us, however, is that Bryce gets to redo his testimony. When I got to the room, the lights were on. There, standing in the middle of the room, was Chirag. He was holding the gun in his hands. So I instantly charged at him. Alex said that this must mean that Chirag had killed Jessica, stating that all the evidence pointed towards him. The judge was nodding at Alex, implying that he was agreeing with this nuisance. At first I thought that this one would be easier, but it started to look bad for us. We had to present evidence of Bryce's handprints on the weapon. Heather said otherwise. She said that we would have to word our objection carefully, because not only were Bryce's prints on the gun, but Jirog's as well. If we weren't careful, Alex could use it against us. Try looking carefully at the details of the gun, Greg, she told me. Try looking. If we weren't careful, Alex could use it against us. Try looking carefully at the details of the gun, Greg, she told me. Squinting my eyes, I tried looking for any clue as to who used that gun. Everything looked to be in place. But something looked off. It was then when I pointed out something that flipped this whole case on its head. This was game-changing. With prints on the gun showing that Bryce was the one who pulled the trigger, not Jirog. Heather said that this was a moment to push back and turn this case around. I was about to raise an objection, but Alex cut me off and presented the gun prints to the judge. Your Honor, please have a look at these prints. You can clearly see that Bryce's Anderson prints overlap Jirog Gupta's. This is in line with testimony. This proves what Mr. Bryce is telling is the truth. Damn it. He beats us to the punch. This is bad. What are we going to do now? Heather had yelled an objection towards Alex. You said that it could have only been Jirog, but find that hard to believe. After all, you did hide a critical detail. The part where the gun fingerprints don't overlap. The one part being the trigger, which only has Bryce's. Heather had just flipped this case back in our favor. This was our chance to break through Alex's case, until Bryce opened his mouth. So what? He never left the room. He was the only one with her. Right there, I saw my moment of opportunity. Jirog did leave the room. Look at this wet paper towel. It was found in Jirog's pocket after he was arrested. If he never left, then it should be dry. The shocked expression of everyone in the courtroom had turned even more shocking. Albert almost fell out of his chair. I then turned towards Bryce, and was about to press him some more. But Alex just had to object. He said that this didn't even matter. Even if the evidence is in Jirog's favor against Bryce. Jirog had a motive and incentive to kill his girlfriend. He then showed the court a cell phone that belonged to the victim. I can't believe you did this to me. I'll explain to you later. It better be good. I'm so mad. This is bad. The jury started to read what it said, and it was apparent that this was a clear motive for Jirog. Jirog looked over at me with an extremely nervous expression on his face, and I started to get nervous too. It was then when Albert said he was ready to make his judgment. Well, this is it. I'm sorry, Jirog. I tried my best. But it wasn't enough. With a swift strike with his gavel, Albert began to speak. Hold it, Your Honor. Please look at the other contacts. At first I had no idea what she was talking about. But then she directed everyone's attention to one contact in particular, Bryce A. Why was Bryce a contact on her phone? What does this mean? Where is Heather going with this? In a matter of moments it all made sense. She said to look at that contact, and the judge did. I'm breaking up with Jirog to protect him. After which I'm going to talk to you. About what? What are you talking about? I'm going to expose you at the party for being related to the. Suddenly Bryce then screamed this. Please. Whatever you do, don't read any more of that text. I'll even suck your. Just please don't read it. I admitted I killed her. I won. In a matter of minutes Bryce was arrested and the court was reconvened. Albert was finally ready to pass a verdict. Although at this point I already knew what was going to happen. What weird turn of events! Not only did you prove your client's innocence, but also prove who the real killer is. My final verdict is not guilty. After that, court was adjourned. I have to say, one of the best things I've heard in a long time. But I can say that those words were even better for someone else. Yeah, baby. That's what I was waiting for. I said it was no problem. I was just doing my job, and that I should be thanking him for believing in me and Heather. Heather seemed to agree with my words. Actually, speaking of Heather, how did you know Bryce would confess? Oh no, the breakdown was an accident that was unexpected. I at least thought she had a master plan when she was talking, but I guess not. What was even more unexpected, was Bryce's breakdown. What was he begging us not to read? Guess we'll never know. Well, anyway, Chirag offered to take us somewhere to eat, so I'll have to finish writing this now. Hopefully a case like this doesn't happen anytime soon.